Hi Lee, how are you?
How are you, mate? Good.
Very good, very good. I saw on your social media you're very keen to watch the game. I think it was Liverpool United, wasn't it?
Yeah, I'm a United fan, so
Oh,
had a bit of a heart attack in the last minute when Harry Maguire put that ball over the top of the bar.
no way! It was Maguire who scored the equalizer. I didn't know.
No, so Dallo scored the equaliser, but literally with about 20 seconds to go, Harry
Yeah.
Maguire was probably 7 yards outside, and he put the ball over the bar.
Hmm.
So yeah, 2-2. I'll take 2-2 at Anfield, no problem.
Yeah. I just read on the news it was a very good game for United,
Second
like in terms
half,
of
second
performance.
half
Yeah.
was decent. Yeah, first half we were a little bit slow, but second half we came into it, and I think we should have won the game in the end, but hey, we're 14th or whatever, so we can't really complain.
Yeah, yeah, right. Actually, I missed the game because I was watching Tommy Robinson documentary, which I think is a big
All
thing
right,
in the UK now.
which documentary was it?
Tommy Robinson.
Did it have was it just Tommy Robinson the documentary?
Yeah, yeah, I think that was the one that um, took him to the jail.
All right, yeah, I haven't seen that one. I watched the podcast with him. I think it was 2 days before with James English, and he says because I think the court had told him that he wasn't allowed to release the documentary, um, and they said if he releases it that he's going to go to jail. So
Yeah,
obviously he did, and obviously he went to jail.
yeah, yeah, and it was expectable. But let's get into politics a bit further, because what I like to start with is the things we discussed last time, mostly the addiction. So you were very open and authentic about those topics, which I really appreciate. I think that's the way you operate in podcasts and social media
Yeah.
in general. So from let's say this uh, monster with multiple faces, that is addiction, what would be, in your experience, the main monster?
It's a difficult question. I'd say the main monster is that of self-hatred. Um,
Mm.
you tend to become a completely different person to who you are inside, I guess. Um, the amount of lies that you tell to everybody around you and the people that you love and your friends and family, and you just become a completely different person, and it's somebody that you can't look at. Um, that's probably the biggest problem I had was self-hatred for myself, and that's why I became sort of this toxic lying addict. And it's extremely difficult to say. It's I think one of the biggest difficulties with having a drug problem, I guess, is being able to sit there and say to other people that you're a drug addict, basically. um so yeah, I'd say that was the biggest issue.
Mm. So there is some constraint in, say, that's the issue. Are you able to help me, or do you have anything in mind that can help me find a way out? There is some embarrassment.
Yeah, I think there's definitely embarrassment. That's where the lies come from, and that's where the sneaking around and being this different person because you're embarrassed about the things that you do. I think I mentioned to you last time that there was hundreds of times where I'd be sitting on my own in the dark, drinking, smoking, taking drugs, watching porn, things like that, and it's embarrassing. That's when you've got children and things like that. That's not the opinion, especially that your children deserve to have of you. Um, so when you're doing all these sneaky, sly things on your own in the dark in the night,
Yeah.
it's difficult for a lot of people to speak about, and I guess that's why there's a lot of people, especially men, especially in the UK, where I'm from in North Wales, where the trauma rates for men are higher than most of the population of Britain. Um, it's a difficult thing for people to speak about. But sorry, my dog's choking. Uh, yeah, it's a difficult thing for people to speak about, and that's why there's a mental health crisis, I guess, more so in men, because we don't have the tools or the capability to speak about our problems at the moment, and that's why a lot of men are taking their own lives.
Yeah, that's a very strong image, what you just described, that you were alone in the dark, doing drugs, drinking, and watching nasty stuff on the screen.
Yeah.
And the first thing that came to my mind that you were doing that hidden. And the fact
Yeah.
that it was the dark, you were also hidden from yourself, that you couldn't
Mhm.
see exactly what you were doing. So you think that the whole, let's say, the whole circumstance you built to do those things, was it conscious, or was it something that happened without your, let's say, your decision?
So I've had this conversation many a times with the people that I love, my girlfriend, but also my therapist. And one thing she said was, because when I was younger, I suffered certain abuses when I was younger, a lot of physical abuse. Um, I spent a lot of time on my own in my bedroom when I was a young boy. So subconsciously, I think when there's a fear of pain sort of enters into my, into my mind and into my consciousness, I guess. I think I've got that subconscious coping mechanism to isolate myself, lock myself away, because I know that at that moment in time, there's a sense of fear, or there's a sense of, like I said before, self-hatred towards myself. And I think I just create this sort of bubble where nothing else exists outside of this bubble. It's just me in the dark on my own, where nobody can hurt me. And and I just, yeah, it's definitely subconscious that I just do it. I do it without even thinking, or did do it without even thinking, should I say. It's been over 2 years since I've done that, where I've sat on my own for days and days in the dark. I haven't done that for over 2 years. So, such wood. I've still got a lot of demons in my mind that I'm working through, and
Mm.
I'm a much better person than I am 2 years ago. But yeah, that was probably the worst time of my life, I think.
Yeah. In terms of drugs, are you able to share what kind of the substances were you into? Were you into?
Yeah, just cocaine. Cocaine, was a massive, massive user at the time. Sleeping tablets. So I was taking a lot of Zopicon sleeping tablets to sort of um, react. So one was an up, one was a down. So I'd take the cocaine, and then when I wanted to go to sleep, I'd take probably 3 or 4 Zopicon tablets. Very lucky, really. You're only supposed to take one, and I was probably taking 3, 4, 5, sometimes more. Um, so I'm quite fortunate that I'm still alive, I think.
Mm. Well, from what I know, cocaine is the most addictive drug. Would you agree with that statement?
Personally, I think so. I'm not really sure as to how addictive heroin is. I don't really know anybody who uses. Um, one thing I'd say is the cocaine is probably the easiest of the stronger drugs to acquire or get hold of. You can go anywhere in the world, any street, any pub, any nightclub, any restaurant, and there'll be somebody in there that that's taking cocaine or selling cocaine. So it's so easy to get hold of, and I guess that's why there's more cocaine addicts in the world than anything else, I guess.
Yeah. The other one we touched base last time was alcohol, and alcohol is, let's say, it's a drug that is not always seen as such, because most people drink, and all sorts of ages, all sorts of backgrounds. People even use it for celebrations, for innocuous events like birthday parties,
Yeah.
school gatherings, and stuff like that. But not everyone is able to tackle it, let's say, correctly. What's your view of alcohol?
So, like I said before, a lot of people who have addiction, whatever that addiction is, whether it be gambling, whether it be drugs, whether it be alcohol, whether it be, porn addiction, sex addictions, whatever, not many people actually know you're an addict at the time. Anyway, you just think I had this conversation with my girlfriend. It was couple was it today, I think. So at that moment in time, you think the life you have and the life around you is normal. You know, you think this is me, this is my life. Everybody sort of lives the same way. We go to the pub, we have a couple of drinks, you take drugs, and that's normal. Whereas now I've drunk 3 times now in the past 8 months, all within a pretty safe environment. Um, and yeah, life's like life's a lot better than what it was too. There's been a lot of times where the demons sort of creep into your mind and try and bring you back to that time. And they nearly did in July last year. Um, but I guess for me, alcohol, it's, you know, it's everything in moderation, I guess. You know, there's people who can go out and have one drink and go home, or 2 drinks, or stay out for 2 or 3 hours. Um, whereas me, I'm not one of them people. If I have one drink, I'm doing it to self-destruct. You know, I'm not one of these people who could come home from work and have 1 or 2 beers watching the TV and go to bed. That's not me. I don't drink for that reason. I think a lot of the time the drink is a coping mechanism for me where I've had a shit day, I'm feeling stressed, I'm feeling a little bit anxious or depressed about something, so I'll use it as a coping mechanism to get rid of those emotions. But alcohol's the older I'm getting, I'm 38 nearly. So the older I'm getting, the more I'm starting to realize that it's a fucking poison.
Yeah.
And I've seen my grandfather, who was my hero. He was a big drinker. He was a big guy like me. I'm 6'6". You know, he was 6'5", 6'6", built like a wall. But he'd go to the pub probably 6 or 7 times a week. Lived till his mid-70s, and unfortunately passed away of cancer. I don't want to be that person. I know cancer is something that comes to anybody, but the life I've lived, like I said before, I'm fortunate enough to still be alive. So over the last 2 years, so 2 years ago, I proved to myself that physically I can be in better shape. This year, I've sort of put the physical aspect on the back burner a little bit to work a lot on my mental state. So this year, I've worked seriously hard on my mental state and the demons and how I cope with them and everything. I'm actually doing some training at the moment on life coaching, which I started yesterday. Like I said, I've started the podcast off the back of, you know, my sort of growth mindset that I've adopted. And I don't want to be that person who gets into his 60s and, you know, is 10 stone overweight or struggling with so many illnesses that you've got to live every day on 10, 15, 20 different prescription drugs. You know, I want to improve my life now, which I've proved to myself over the last 2 years that can be done. I've just got to put it all together now and then move forward, you know, with my health, with my nutrition, with my lifestyle, you know, all that, put it all together, because I know if I live the life that I have, I'll be dead by the time I'm 50. I know that. I know that. I've seen the facts in blood tests. I've seen the fact in, you know, MRI scans that if I carry on, I will be dead by the time I'm 50 years old. And that's not something that I want or my missus wants or my children want. So going back to the topic of alcohol, alcohol is the starting point for me, which it is for, and I don't know the number, but I'm going to say thousands, hundreds of thousands of men across the world, hundreds of thousands of men and women, because, there's a lot of women, especially on social media that I follow, who are also in recovery. Alcohol is the start. It's the fuel that ignites this wild, crazy, different reality that you go into with drug abuse. Alcohol is the starting point for so many people that we need to take that out, because nothing positive comes, nothing positive comes for me now, going to a pub, nothing positive comes from that. I'll stay there for 6, 7, 8, 9 hours, spend 100, £200, come home, probably end up having an argument with my girlfriend if I did, probably end up sleeping on the couch or, getting kicked out. And that's not the lifestyle that I want. I'm not saying that happens, because it doesn't. Me and my girlfriend have got a really good relationship and the building blocks are fantastic. But I know they are the outcomes if I was to carry on doing that. I've done it in the past. I've done it a lot of times in the past. So I know that for me now, alcohol is, they call spirits. They take the spirit out of you. You just become a completely different person. And 90% of the time for me, I wasn't, it was never a better person. It was always worse. So, yeah, no more.
So what's your strategy to stay away from alcohol? Let's say when you go out, like you stay just in places where alcohol it's not part of the party. How do you make sure that you are not falling into the temptation? Because staying at home it's an option, but it cannot be an option for the whole year. There are occasions that you're gonna gather, you're gonna do some things with others, and maybe someone brings a bottle. So how would you approach that situation where alcohol is present?
So 2 years ago, when I was probably about 155 kilos in weight, because I'd been suffering all the way through COVID. I think we spoke about it last time. I was suffering through COVID. My grandmother and grandpa had passed away. I got divorced, and there was a lot of I lost my home. There's a lot of difficult things going on. So I put a lot of weight on. I was drinking, eating crap food day in, day out. I put a lot of weight on. So 2 years ago, I was going to the gym probably twice a day, 5, 6, 7 days a week. And that was my coping mechanism then for when, say it was a Friday evening, when everybody was going out to the pubs drinking, I'd be itching, my legs were itching to go out and I'd want to drink. So I'd go to the gym at probably midnight or 11 o'clock at night on a Friday. I'd go and work it out of me that way, and then I'd come home and go to sleep. This year, I probably have drunk 10. I'm not going to put a number on it because I don't know what the number was. And I was starting to fall back into that trap of, the negative aspects of drinking were coming out in me. So since July last year, when me and my girlfriend realized, look, it's starting to come back into our lives. We need to get rid of it now. Since July of last year, I think it was, I've drunk probably 4 times. 3 of those times were with my girlfriend. So there was no real, I don't want to say option, but I think it was pretty much just me and her. And then there was another time where it was with a friend of mine. And I guess the answer to your question is, for me, I just can't be around it anymore. Because if it is around me, the temptation will probably be too much. So I know for me, the answer is to not drink. It's to be sober. And if there was people around me who were drinking, I'm going to have to selfishly decline and probably leave. Me and my girlfriend went out New Year's Eve. We went for dinner. She had a couple of drinks. I drove, which was a big shock for me because that's never been the case in the past. And it's just, do you ever listen to Theo Von's podcasts?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Yeah. So have you heard him speak about addiction?
Yes. Yeah, he even mentioned that on the podcast with Trump, whose brother was alcohol addicted.
Yeah. So mine and Theo Von's addiction is identical, absolutely identical. The drink isn't the addiction. The drink is the key to the door that opens the door for the addiction. Without alcohol, I'd never be interested in drugs, never. So like Theo Von says, when somebody said, I think it was Ed Sheeran says to him, why don't you drink? And as he does, Theo, obviously he's a comedic guy. He says, well, if I drink, I'll buy drugs, and that's the exact case with me. I think if I do drink, then, there's a high possibility that I'm going to get myself into trouble. So for me, the biggest thing to do is to take that key away and throw it,
Yeah. Yeah, it's the beginning. Yeah, that's exactly how I see it. I'm likely to say that I was never addicted, although I drink. I think I have the appetite or the mental structure, to fall into the trap. And
Yeah.
most times when I see myself doing stupid stuff, it's either when I'm drinking or even the day after. Day after is also very common. I don't know if you can relate to that, but the day after is also an area of danger.
So the days, or I'm going to say days after, so 2 or 3 days after, I'm always manically depressed, and I just probably don't move, or didn't, not anymore, but I didn't. So I'd probably just lie in bed for 2 or 3 days, eating junk food, watching TV, switch my phone off, and just again living in a small bubble until I'm ready to come back out. So yeah, not so much the day after. Just at that time is when I do some absolutely stupid, idiotic things, which I'm
Would
not
you
proud
put,
of, by the way.
yeah, would you put pornography under that category of stupid stuff?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Definitely. And I think, that is another topic. I'm doing a podcast myself next week with a guy talking about pornography. The men's mental health group that I was going to last year, we spoke a lot on it, on how, you don't think it's an addiction, but it probably is. Well, it is. It definitely is. Um, and you think it's doing no harm, but as I know, it can have a seriously adverse effect on your relationship as well.
Yes, yeah, 100%. Like I have a very bad opinion of pornography. I'm not in favor of banning it because I don't know. I think people should have access to things to a certain degree. So I don't think it should be excluded. Also, because I believe that the forbidden fruit is not a good concept. Because if you make it something that you shouldn't touch, maybe a lot of us will be even more interested. So it should be there, but there should be barriers. I don't know. The technology should be set up in a way that not everyone can access. Like for instance, the fact that, let's say, someone at the age of 12 can see 100 naked women in 1 minute. For me, that's beyond
Yeah.
all moral levels. Why they should have that opportunity? It doesn't make any sense.
You've only got to look as far as social media these days. You don't even have to go looking for it.
Yeah.
You can just go onto Instagram, for instance, and it's weird. Obviously, it's people hacking other people's accounts and things like that. But I remember seeing when I was following this guy. He was a fisherman. He used to put videos of him fishing, and his account was hacked. And next minute, it's three pretty much naked women dancing on a table. So if I'm able to see that, then obviously, and we all know there's children on social media. We all know that. Children that shouldn't be on there. They're underage, but they are. So they're obviously seeing those things as well.
And that's
And
another.
even though,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
even though I have watched porn in the past. Again, not proud of it myself. Something that me and my girlfriend have had to work through as well. It sort of glamorizes it for young women.
Yeah.
And makes it look as if it's something okay to do, and for young boys as well. I've got a real problem with the certain podcasts where criminals and things like that are put on there, and they glamorize certain environments or when they were in jail and how they stabbed somebody in a jail cell. I've got a real problem with that because it glamorizes criminality, and that's not the right message that we need to be sending to our children. My son is 17 next month, and we've had the conversation about everything that I've done in my life, about being involved in the drug world, I guess. And like I said, it's a difficult conversation to have, especially with firstborn son who looks at me like I'm his hero, which he still does. But it's something that at first I thought he thought it was cool. He thought it was cool that my father's been involved in that sort of world. My father was very, very similar. And even though I didn't have a lot to do with him when I was growing up, I knew what sort of lifestyle he led. And because he could fight, and because he was involved with the cool gang, shall we say, and doing drinking and drugs and women and things like that, you think it's cool. But as you grow up, you realize it's probably the worst possible thing. If you want to live a happy life, that is certainly not the way to go, because all it brings is misery.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. The other one I have here in the list of addictions is betting. Was that ever a problem for you, betting, gambling, that kind of thing?
No, I've touch wood. That's one thing that I've never struggled with. Yeah, even on the Grand National Day, I don't really put a bet on. I actually went to the Grand National a few years ago, and I didn't even put a bet on while I was there. So, yeah, I can't comment really on gambling because I don't know much about it.
Would you guess what's the reason why gambling was not a thing for you?
Probably. So, on one hand, I've always been a good parent, I believe. Not good in the fact that obviously I had issues with drinking, drugs, and things like that, but I always worked. I was provided for them. So on one hand, I was, providing for two children at a very young age, and probably the fact that, I was I was in an addiction myself. Probably didn't have any money to gamble, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, that doesn't help. But I also believe that people who have money, they don't gamble. It's more those who are in need that they will fall into the temptation. Like they get, I don't know, 50 quid, and they say, okay, this is my opportunity to multiply it and turn it into 500. And it's a trap. And they might make it this 500, but then they're going to bet 400 out of that, and they're going to lose it. So they're going to end up with, I don't know, 50 quid. They could have 500 quid in their wallet. I think it's a big trap, actually. My mom is addicted to scratching games, and we spoke about it like in person, so I don't mind say that to camera. Like, so even when she visits me here in Ireland, and I'm like showing her, okay, here is the statue of James Joyce, here is the beautiful park similar to those in London. Her eyes are always thinking, where is the store where I can buy the scratching game? And I'm like, Mom, you are abroad, enjoy that. And if she sees a store that resembles those where she buys in Portugal, she immediately wants to go there. And sometimes she just says, oh, I need a bottle of water. Oh, I need to find a souvenir.
Just so she can go into the shop.
And it's bullshit. It's bullshit.
Yeah.
So we walk in there, and all she is looking at is for that. So what I do is I tell her, look, I don't understand the rules. You don't speak English, so we cannot buy it. Sorry. Like that. So
I've got a couple of friends. I've got one friend who had a problem with scratch cards for a long time. I haven't seen him for a couple of years, so I don't know if he's still got that problem. And I've got probably 3 or 4 friends who have got serious gambling addictions, like really, really bad. I actually witnessed it. It was probably the only time I've ever witnessed a gambling addiction. We were having a beer, this going back 3 or 4 years ago, and he put £250 on. I'm gonna say like a online roulette machine on his phone. And from that £250, he got to about 12,000. And he was there for the best part of 3 or 4 hours on his phone, banging away. So I looked over and I said, you've got a serious amount of money there. I said, withdraw it, take it. He said, yeah, I will. I'll take it in a minute. Anyway, I left him for probably the best part of an hour again. Came back, he had £5 on the phone.
no way.
£5. He'd spent it all. I said to him, I said, have you withdrawn that money? And he said, no, it's gone. And I was like, wow, that's crazy. Just sat there, similar to like I did, I guess, when I was sat on my own in the dark. He was sat there for the best part of 5 hours. He didn't move, not once, just on his phone, tapping, tapping, tapping.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, that's intense. But it might be, that addiction might be for similar reasons that I had mine. It might not be. So again, it's not really something that I've really looked into, so I don't really know why the reasons are, to be honest.
Yeah. I would say that most men that are listening to us, they can relate to the Sunday that they are hungover. It's true that they enjoy themselves, but they didn't get the woman they want. So they end up by themselves in the couch watching porn the whole day. That they made love to themselves for 2-3 hours, ordered junk food. Maybe they bet to see if they can recover the money they spent on Saturday, and then they go to Monday and they hate their job. So this is nothing that I think it's, let's say, unusual for most men
Yeah.
in this day
Yeah.
and age. They may not be addicted, but if this is a cycle, then it can be a problem.
Yeah, and I think so when we talk about addiction, a lot of people think that addiction is something that you do on a daily basis. So say for instance, a functioning alcoholic, they have to drink every day. They have to drink just to function normally. And that is something that has to be done every day. When we talk about what you just mentioned there, where people will go out and drink on a Saturday night and they'll take drugs on a Saturday night, and then Sunday they'll feel hungover and they'll order shit food and they'll watch porn, maybe do a bit of gambling. That is an addiction. Even if you're doing that once a week, that 100% is an addiction, because the addiction is the cycle. You go to work Monday, you hate your job. Tuesday, you feel a little bit better. Wednesday, you feel okay. Thursday, you get a bit excited because it's nearly Friday. Friday comes, you've only got 8 hours left in work. Friday afternoon comes, you go to the pub, you see the boys, you do whatever you're going to do. And Saturday, or you might even drink all night Friday and stay out and drink all day Saturday and then spend Sunday recovering. That cycle is so poisonous, it's unbelievable. And you'll probably know the same as I do. There's a serious percentage of men and women who do that week in, week out, week in, week out for their whole lives.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people who've done it for their whole lives, and they'll never break that cycle, unfortunately. They'll be in a job. And again, this isn't me, diminishing anybody. They'll be in a job that they don't like, which is low paid, which doesn't bring any value whatsoever to their lives. Because I've been there myself years ago. Doesn't bring any value, and you just repeat that cycle of enjoying going to the same pub on a Friday, the same pub on a Saturday, even on a Sunday, and that people live their whole lives. That there is an addiction. It's an addiction to not just a drug as such. It's an addiction to the lifestyle. It's an addiction to your surroundings, your environment, and it's sad. It really is sad. But I think society is built that way for a lot of people to live that way. Society is built so, a lot of the lower class stay there and don't ever get out. They stay there forever. They do what they needed to do to support the financial side of whatever governments or politics want, and they live this lifestyle and die. I'm a big believer in that's what a lot of life is for a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, I would subscribe to that. Just before we get into politics, I would just say, and that's a conversation I had with my girlfriend this week, that I truly believe, and I don't want to sound like a Tate brother in this in this podcast. I like them, but I don't. We can talk about them in detail.
Same.
But I think the whole system is a scam. Just to be honest.
100%.
Yeah, but just before we get into the system, what would be your advice for someone to get out of that cycle that you just described? So they are not addicted to the point that they don't have a job, they still have friends, they can still afford their drinks. So they are not, like say, addicted, but they are just caught in that cycle, but probably they are not aware of it. So what would be your suggestion for them to change and to break it?
So this, I'm actively in that process at this moment in time. You know, I think it takes a lot of soul searching and a lot of looking at yourself in the mirror to realize that this isn't the life that I want. It takes, sometimes it'll take a traumatic experience or, you know, pain or whatever. For me, it was the fact that I almost died, you know, for me. And it's 2 years, 2.5 years, maybe 3 years actually since that time. And it took me a long, long time to really understand the values in friendship, the values in relationships, the values in just general lifestyles. And I don't think there is any set process of how you can sort of escape that life, but it's about you and what you want from life, I guess. There's a lot of, so when I say there's a lot of people who live that lifestyle, a lot of people are happy to do that. I know a couple of, you know, quite a lot of guys that are happy to work in a job that they don't like all week and go for a drink and take drugs on a weekend. They're happy with that. And that's their life and that's fine. But if you do want to get out of it, you've got to do some real soul searching, and you've got to adopt what's known as the growth mindset, which is something that I'm learning on a daily basis. My girlfriend's had a massive part to play in the big changes in my lifestyle, and I believe I'm only just getting started as well. I believe I've got a lot to give, and hopefully want to help people. That's one of my plans in the future, alongside the podcast, is to help people in my local area get out of this incriminating lifestyle that we live. But I just want to pick up on something you just said there. You said that a lot of people may not know what their problems are. I think that's what you said.
Yeah.
I want to touch on something Jordan Peterson said, and it's something that I resonated with me when I was really in the darkest part of my depression. Something really easy as well. He said, "We all know what our problems are. We're just afraid to face them head on."
Yeah.
And I agree with it. So I've always, so over the last 2 years, I've looked at life in through a complicated lens. Life's really difficult. Life's hard, which it is at moments. And again, it's a conversation I had with my girlfriend the other day, that we can simplify life to however we want it to be. And I agree with it now, because my life at the moment is so simple. I go to work. I've got a relationship with my girlfriend and my children and her children. I play golf. Now and then I'll go to the gym, which I need to improve on this year. And I take my daughter to jujitsu. That's it. That's my life. And I do the podcast. That's it. That's literally all I do. It's
Yeah.
so simple. There's no noise. There's no outside noise in my life anymore. And I guess, so going back to what Jordan Peterson said, we all know what our problems are. I know what my problems are. Like we mentioned before, alcohol is the key to opening the door. I know that is one of my problems. So the best thing for me to do is take that away. Another problem could be the environment or certain places that I'll go. So I know, for me to get better, I take that environment out of my life. I just don't go to these places, whether that be a pub or, you know, a certain location where old friends of mine are. At this moment in time, for me, that's not what I need. So I take that out. And straight away, there's two massive factors of why I was depressed, why I felt anxious, why I was so sad all the time. There's two blocks that I've taken away and replaced with two positive things, i.e., golf and taking my daughter to jujitsu 3 times a week. So I'm replacing negative with positive, and they're not massive, you know, they're not massive life-changing things. It's so simple, but yet they've made such a drastic impact on my life. So that's what I'm going to try and do for now, is just, and if I was to give anybody any advice, it'd just be start small and keep it simple. Do the simple things well, and the big things will automatically happen, which is sort of where I am this year. I'm hoping to do some good things with the podcast and some good things with the online, the training that I'm doing at the moment. So if I can keep the small things right from here on in, then hopefully the big things will take care of themselves.
Yeah, and it has to be you, because the system won't be in your favor. They want to enslave you. They want to make sure that you are doing what is good for them. I don't like to talk about the people upstairs because it seems some conspiracy theory, but there are some folks that we don't see. They are behind the curtain, and they are somehow driving our own decisions, which is awful. So you mentioned last time, I think it was already off camera, but I think that's something that we can explore here, that you believe that the UK and US government are one of the most corrupted in the world. So do you want to expand that?
Well, this is only based on my opinion, and I've got some of them are conspiracy theories. I understand that, but just if you're looking back through history and things like that, I mean, you can go back as far as the Napoleonic War and see that they were both being funded by, I think, the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds. The rich create war to create money. That is my own opinion, and I could be wrong, but. And so if you look at America, for instance, they're one of the most powerful countries in the world, if not the. And I've actually got a story to tell. I won't say who. Somebody I know was actually in Afghanistan during the war. And they were in a opium compound. And they were firing at the Taliban, trying to get them out of this compound. And it shocked him because this guy I know has been in the military probably 20 plus years. And he said to me, the Taliban weren't interested. All they wanted to do was set fire to the opium fields. So he couldn't understand why the Taliban were doing this. So he said, next minute, all these opium fields are on fire. He said, and within minutes, 2 or 3 big American helicopters came over the compound and put the fire out with water from the helicopter. My personal, and it was my opinion at that time, and it was also his opinion afterwards, that the Americans were only in Afghanistan for opium. Again, that's a conspiracy. But there's never any smoke without a fire.
Yes.
I've got my opinions on the Twin Towers. Again, can't prove it, but I've got my opinions on that. If you look at, what's his name? The Colombian drug lord. What was his name?
Pablo Escobar.
You know what? Pablo Escobar. So he was paying the CIA, and that's proven. That's facts. He was paying the CIA millions and millions of dollars every week to smuggle cocaine into America. As soon as they didn't need him anymore, they locked him up. If you look at, have you ever seen the film American Gangster with Denzel Washington?
No, I don't think I did. Yeah.
So he plays, true story, he plays a guy called Frank Lucas, who was a black heroin dealer around the Vietnamese War. And so basically he flew over to Vietnam, and he was smuggling heroin in the coffins of dead soldiers back into America. And the American government knew about it. He was paying the American government as well as the Italian mafia. Soon as the Vietnamese War ended, they locked him up, put him in jail. So while he was bringing millions of dollars in every week for the government, they were fine. Soon as the Vietnamese War ended, they locked him up. And I believe that these governments are just getting smarter and smarter on finding more ways to make money. They're the most powerful people on the planet. And I believe they're also the most corrupt people on the planet. And every war that happens is for their own financial benefit. That's just my opinion. Yeah,
I would also subscribe that. The UK government is also under fire. I think the main thing now is with the migration, there are a lot of women and children who apparently were abused, and that was never reported by the authorities and the press. And apparently it was not an accident, it was everything in purpose. So as someone in the UK based in Wales, is there anything that you want to add? Because we may not be able to see things or be aware of things that you are able because we're in the field.
So when you say women being attacked, do you mean British women being attacked by foreign migrants? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, like usually with the sex intent or sexual intent.
Yeah. So that's something that I agree with Tommy Robinson. He's a big advocate for that. There's a lot of illegal immigrants that have came over here. I think there was one last week. Was there a young girl was murdered? I think stabbed to death. Don't quote me on it. I think it was last week or the week before. If you follow these the paedophile hunters on Instagram, I mean, over the last few weeks, the amount of illegals that they've found trying to contact young women is unbelievable. And the government do know about it, and the statistics are there, but they certainly don't want to show that, because I believe if they do show that number, then Britain, we're very, very close to civil war as it is. But I think something like that might just push us over the edge. But this country's, my pardon my French, but this country's fucked. It's just it shows you how how well this country's doing when all the rich people live abroad. The proof's in the pudding. This country and America, it's like a circus. It's absolutely like a circus. And then I've seen a few things over the last couple of months or the last couple of years where you look at, say, Russia, for instance, whether you disagree or agree with what he's doing. I don't really know a great deal about it. But, Eastern Europe, Asia, in Asia, you've got to do 3 or 4 years in the military before you can do anything else with your life. And, a lot of the time, Britain and America are rowing over TikTok fucking videos. It's sad. We've become a laughing stock. I think it's all an agenda. I think it's all a driven agenda by the powers that be to upset the apple cart, should we say? But it's working. Men can't be men anymore. If you want to be a sort of an old-fashioned man, shall we say, then you get deemed a misogynist or a transphobic or whatever. And I've always said I've got no problem with anybody myself. Be who you want to be. That, as long as you love yourself and be who you want to be, that's fine. But for me personally, I've got an issue when I'm seeing men who don't feel like they've got a place in the world, hanging themselves or asking for help, and then they're not getting it and coming home and killing themselves, which has happened in the town that I live in. A gentleman 2 years ago went to hospital asking for help, couldn't deal with life, didn't give him any help, and he went home and slit his own throat, killed himself. But yeah, I definitely think, there's an agenda being driven. Sorry, go on.
No, just say that's a serious concern, especially when there are people suffering and no one cares just because of their gender, skin color, nationality. Because let's say if a man would arrive here, so I don't know if this guy was heterosexual or not, but I would take it for granted. But let's say he's hetero, he's white, and he's British. If he would be hetero and Arabic, that would be fine. They would help him. They'll help him. If he'll be gay, he'll be helped. Just because he ticks all the boxes, then he's seen as an enemy. And that's that whole idea that for centuries that person was privileged. That's absolutely rubbish. Because if probably we look at the family history of that man, of the family tree, they all struggled. Like my father, I never said that in the camera, but it's about time to say my father only could wear shoes once a week. So he would go to school, on his bare feet. That's a fact. So I cannot accept someone.
Sorry, where was your family from? Where are you located?
They are from the countryside of Portugal. So it's not
all right. Yeah.
It was not unusual. I'm talking about the 60s and 70s. But my mom would be like from a let's say, privileged part of the village. Although the village was poor, but she was at the top of the pyramid, and my father was at the bottom. But he was good looking enough, and his his verbal skills made it to my mom, and good for both of them. But he couldn't wear shoes for most of his week, and he would bring like half a bread that would be his lunch. And now he comes and visits me here in Ireland. We go to nice restaurants. We have a couple of pints of Guinness, and it's so good. And it was just luck. It's not that because things are better for people like him, but that's a fact. So this whole conversation about privilege, it's absolutely nonsense. Absolutely nonsense.
Yeah, and I listen to quite a lot of conversations on social media about something like white privilege. I haven't had the hardest life in the world, but I've had some issues, growing up. I certainly don't feel as though I'm in a position of power or a position of privilege. I believe that, where I come from, a council estate, I live, where we live now, it's so diverse. We've got, people from Asia, Africa, Eastern Europe, South America, they all live here. And, I get on with everybody. I love everybody. For me, it doesn't matter where you're from, what your skin color is, how you speak. If you're nice to me, I'm nice to you. But the one thing I want to stand by is my beliefs. So I speak a lot about mental health. But the one thing I'm having a real difficult time accepting, rightly or wrongly, and I could be educated maybe, is when men are saying they're women and women are saying they're men. I've like I said, be who you want to be happy. If you believe that you are who you say you are, then that's fine. But when somebody's telling me that I've got to accept that, I find that really difficult. If you looked at a red wall, if you were to say to me now, it's the sun's out in the sky right now, even though it's 8 o'clock at night, I'd disagree. I'd say, well, no, it's dark. And if you kept saying to me, oh, you've got to agree with me, otherwise I get offended, that's on you. That's your problem. That's not my problem. If you want to be offended, that's up to you. But for me, there's certain boundaries that I can't accept. Maybe I'll change those opinions in the future, but at this moment in time, that's probably the only one thing that sort of gets under my skin a little bit.
Yeah, and especially because they want to impose. Like, I don't have an issue if I speak to someone and let's say I look at him and he looks like John. Okay, so I approach him as he's John, and then he tells me he believes he's Jane, and it's fine. I can treat him as Jane from that moment. But what I don't want is I need to ask before I approach him if he's John or Jane. If he comes across as John, I'm going to speak to him as he's John, and it's that simple. I don't need to ask because otherwise, how can we interact with each other? We cannot ask people's gender all the time. We cannot ask every single detail for every single conversation. Otherwise, what kind of interaction would we establish with others? It would be very, very poor. To be just asking things that are unnecessary.
You made a good point before where you mentioned it 3 or 4 minutes ago, where you said that the countries are fighting with each other. So Britain, there's all these, rows and fighting and chaos. Same in America. It's a very dysfunctional country at this moment in time. You've got people on the left, you've got people on the right, you've got your trans movement, you've got the black rights movement. Everybody's sort of so racially divided at the moment. It's sad because I wasn't alive, 80 years ago, but the success that the countries have had with something like racism since then, we've come a long way. Feels like we're going backwards. It feels like we're going backwards. For me, like I said, if there was somebody who came in now and they identified as trans, I'd have no problem with it. as long as I'm not going to push my opinions on anybody in the world or my beliefs. My beliefs are my beliefs. I'll explain what they are, but if you don't believe them, that's fine. That's no problem. I can still be your friend. But I think we're at this point now where if you don't agree with everybody else in the world, then you become this, transphobe or misogynist or a racist and I'm not any of those things. I'm not any of those things. I love everybody. I want everybody to have a happy life, but the world's just so divided at the moment. It's a very, very dangerous, volatile place at the moment, I think.
Yes, yeah, especially because it's divided by those who claim that they want everyone together and to act as a team, and all they do is split people in tribes. Now, if they can let everyone think by themselves and have their own opinions and bring that to the table, and everyone will benefit from our own experience, that would be ideal. But it seems like everyone is split by things that are irrelevant. And I would say that, I don't know, your skin color is probably your thing number 10 or 12. I don't know. How does that matter? Maybe your skin color can be an issue if you stay longer under the sun. That's it. That's all that matters. Or maybe I'm more prepared, or maybe I'm weird like me. Like I'm actually quite tan myself, but I get burned very easily. So why does that matter? End of the day,
Exactly.
it's irrelevant. It's irrelevant.
Yeah, it's skin like I've sort of got Celtic look. I've got slightly ginger hair and pale skin. It doesn't matter. As long as the thing is, like yourself in the 60s, the 50s, 60s, 70s, segregation was massive. You know, in America between black and white people, it was huge. I think segregation today, it's not so much in law because obviously there's no segregation in law anymore, not that I know of, but in communities and the segregation's massive. You know, it's it's sad. Like this, the trans movement, they sort of hate everybody if you don't accept them or accept their beliefs. Me and you could have a disagreement now, but still be friends. Just because you have
Yeah.
a disagreement with somebody doesn't mean you hate them. I don't hate nobody, and I imagine you don't as well. Just because you're having a disagreement doesn't necessarily mean you hate that person. And it's
No.
sad. It's sad because I can't see where this ends. I can't see where everybody just lives out the life that they want to live. There's so much chaos at the moment in the world. It's difficult to find peace. Social media, it's the devil. It's the fucking devil at the moment. There's, like I said, there's so much chaos. It's difficult to find peace.
As we come into 1 hour, and there's one topic that we haven't touched a lot, but I think it's worth exploring. It's the podcasting. So, how is it going? You started a few months ago. I can see that it's growing in terms of numbers and people's attention. So, but or in the personal level, what have you achieved?
I think starting the podcast for me was extremely nerve-wracking. I was scared to do it. Like I've said to you today, it's difficult and sometimes embarrassing to open up to anybody who wants to watch it, because even though a lot of the time you get positive feedback, sometimes you get negative feedback, and it's extremely difficult to receive negative feedback. But I'm not going to lie, it's been tough, because I've done probably the same as yourself. It's pretty much all been me. I've done it all on my own. And obviously, I do online podcasts, but then I do face-to-face podcasts as well. So it's difficult getting all the technical side of it correct, and then all the video editing. And especially if it's a difficult conversation that you're having with somebody, then you've got to go back and edit it and listen to the conversation again. So the first couple of episodes I did, it had a really adverse effect on me, if you like. It took its toll on me, where at the point where I probably had a couple of drinks, because it's difficult listening to people that you know and people that you care about telling you that they've attempted suicide and things like that. It's difficult, but at the same time, it's really enjoyable because I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot over the last, say, 9-10 months, I've learned that for me to do what I want to do, I've got to be a better person, which in turn makes me or gives me the tools to help other people. I enjoy it because people who didn't think they had any sort of outlook or output as to their own issues have come on there, sat in front of a camera, they've been brave and spoke about all their problems, which in turn has helped them and the communication with their family or people that they know who didn't realize that they were struggling. And also meeting people like yourself and meeting people that I probably never would have spoke to otherwise, you know. I've made good friends with a guy from Boston 2-3 weeks ago, where we done a podcast together, where we had we were the same age, we had a very similar lifestyle, only the fact that he'd been to jail. And yeah, you know, it's meeting new people, building new friendships, and like they say, you know, show me your 5 friends and I'll show you your future.
Yes.
And
Yeah. That,
slowly but surely, my 5, the names on my 5 or 4 fingers and 1 thumb are you know, changing they're changing. So the future looks good, and the podcast has been a big part in me developing and adopting this growth mindset and becoming a better person.
Yeah, that's essential, and I think it feels very good to be in the mix, because after like a year, I think both of us started more or less at the same time. Like our environment radically changed. There are so many people that we can think of that they were nowhere in our horizon, and what happens is some others that were prominent, they are not here anymore. They are just on the side, and these recycling processes, I think it's very grateful. And it changes a lot. And the more you do, the more, if you do it properly, obviously, but if you do it well, the more you do, the more opportunities will come your way. And it feels great. It really feels great. I think it's the same with everything in life. Like the more you do, the more you are exposed, the more things you have access to.
Yeah, so I'll give you a short example here. I'll keep it short and sweet. So yesterday I signed up to this sort of like online growth mindset training. So you can train to be anything from a life coach training to spiritual training to neuro-linguistical programming training to mental health training. There's all sorts. There's probably, I'm going to say 150 to 200 accredited courses on there. So I joined up to it because it's something that if I only take one thing away from it, and that is to benefit me, then you know I'm fine, you know, paying for it, because knowledge is power. So you get to log into this community. It's a bit like Facebook, but it's only for the people that are within this sort of academy, if you like. So today I started doing a little bit of networking. So today I've met 4 sort of growth mindset life coaches, if you like. And one of the ladies who welcomed me into the academy has actually done a TED talk. You know what the TED talks are, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she had like over 1 million views, and she is globally recognized in her profession. And if I was to only take that piece away of meeting somebody like that who could develop my character and develop me as a person into, you know, doing this as a career, that's massive.
Yes.
That's huge. You know, I could be sat round now doing, you know, if I think the podcast's small, which it is at the moment, it's a growing podcast, but I'm so fortunate now that I've done that, and I've got to, like I said, I got to meet people like you. And then today I've met this lady just because I signed on to a training academy yesterday. That's massive compared to what, if I was still carrying on doing the things I was doing 2 years ago, nothing changes. You know, I'd still be sat in a pub, depressed, sad, drinking all the time, and who knows what else. One thing I don't ever do, and my therapist said this, is take or receive gratitude or positive feedback. I don't like taking positive feedback. It's difficult to accept when you've made so many mistakes in life. But I am proud of myself and what I'm doing, because it takes a strong person to get out of the hole that I was in. And, so I do feel like I've got to give myself a pat on the back sometimes. So, yeah.
It's well deserved. It's well deserved. I think I listened to some of your episodes, and one thing that I would say, that I think that's the right way to describe it. They are real conversations, and that's what podcasts are. Podcasts are meant to be conversations without filters, and I think that's the way you operate. And people want to listen, like people talk to each other without much of posing or pretending. That's exactly what you do. So I think that's very well done. So what would you, just to finalize, what would you tell to someone who is about to start a podcast, or is thinking about starting, but is still hesitating because they don't know if they can do it or in what shape and form?
My one piece of advice would be just be yourself. Speak about what you want to speak about. Be yourself. And that's it. I think, again, me and my girlfriend had this conversation. If you lie, or if you say things that aren't necessarily true, but you don't mean to lie. So let's say, for instance, I spoke once about my blood pressure a couple of years ago when I nearly passed away, when I nearly died. My girlfriend's a nurse. So I mentioned what my blood pressure levels were, and I got it wrong. They were wrong. So she said to me, don't say something if you don't know the exact figure, because otherwise you'll get found out. So the other thing I'll say is be honest, be yourself and be honest. That's it.
Yeah, it seems simple, but it has a lot of repercussions in your future and in yourself. It seems so obvious, but I think most people lie because it's kind of entertaining. They are so fed up with their own circumstances that at least they can create something that is different, and maybe they can make a game out of it and invite others.
It's easy to lie, though. I've been that person for a long time. I used to lie a lot about some things that were so small. It's easy to lie because, like you said, you can make people laugh a lot of the time when you lie, or it's entertaining, or you can get away with things that you shouldn't be getting away with. So it's easy to lie, but yeah, be yourself, be honest. I've got two questions for you, because obviously you're a bit further down the road with the podcasting. I think you've done about 35, 40 episodes now, maybe.
This is episode 46, yeah.
Or 46. So I think I'm on 14, I think, or 15. If you've seen any of my podcasts, what would be one bit of feedback that you would give me for me to become a better person, better podcaster?
A better podcaster. So that would be a tip for you to improve, just to see if I understood correctly. I don't know, because I like your style. Just let's start with the positives. Huh? I like your style. You are natural. You are yourself. You are the person that I'm talking to in this podcast is the person that is the host of your podcast. So that's great. Like you don't really change between being the host and being the guest, or you change, but to the extent that is necessary, because it's a different role, and you cannot be the exact same person. The thing I would tell to improve, I wouldn't say exactly in the way you interact with the guests, but maybe in terms of how you, and I don't know exactly what you do, or to the extent of how much you do in terms of promotion. Like I haven't seen you, for instance. Let's say we are finalizing the podcast in a few minutes, and I will create clips. I know you do shorts of 20, 30 seconds, but and correct me if I'm wrong, I haven't seen you creating clips of 5, 10, 15 minutes. And I think that's a good thing. So I advise podcasters to do that, because I saw benefits myself.
Yeah. So I do them clips, but only on TikTok. And that is one of my downfalls. And I agree with you there. I don't really do anything on Instagram or Facebook. So I agree. I do them on TikTok. So I've got a TikTok page where I do sort of 4 or 5 minute clips. But yeah, I agree. I'll take that away, because I do agree. I don't do enough on Instagram or Facebook. So yeah, I agree with that.
And it's very easy, because like during the Christmas break, like I was by myself for a few days, which was great. And I learned that through AI, like you can get already like chapters. So you can say, okay, here's one clip about addiction. Here's one clip about the UK government. Here's one clip about podcasting. So yes, you can listen to the whole thing, but it's very much time consuming. And I've been struggling with this, and I think it's a common thing for most of us. But with AI, you can already see like, okay, here is the one chapter, here's another chapter. So it's we can take it offline, and I can give you a hand on that. And I'm more than happy.
So I actually use Opus Clips, which is an AI format. So you put the video into it, and it'll generate clips for you. And I've got all the clips that I've got on TikTok but I just don't do it on Instagram or Facebook for some reason. But I'll definitely do that. I'll definitely take it away, and I'll start doing that for sure. And I guess the second question is,
I was not prepared for this, but I'm happy with that.
I guess my other question is, you've done probably 45, 50 episodes almost. What would be your plan for the next 12 months?
So I only did interviews like as we did today, on a one-on-one basis. So what I plan to do, I haven't seen this on camera, but fine, the time has to come. So here's the opportunity. I want to expand to different formats. So what I would like to do is have topics, and then have people come to talk about those topics. So let's talk about Trump going back to the White House. That can be a topic for, let's say, 2 months. So, okay, what we expect on the first week. So we can talk to some people the week before he's back in the White House. Then we talk about how do you think was the first 2 weeks? How do you think was the first month? What would expect for the summer? So have a topic, have a panel. The panel doesn't need to be the same people all the time, but let's say have a pool of, I don't know, 5-10 people, and then ask them randomly, okay, can you come over this Tuesday? No, I can come over next Tuesday. No problem, because I already have 2 people. So having like myself and two other, and discuss a specific topic. So let's say one day for politics, another day for personal development, another day for sports, the things that I usually talk about it. So I want to expand to that, because I think it's like I think it's also a sort of dynamic that it's good for the audience, because it's one-on-one conversation. Yes, it works, but a group of people, a small group of people, no more than say 4, it's also catching.
Yeah. And I guess the reason that I asked that is because obviously I've sort of based my podcast around mental health. But I believe as I sort of progress further into the podcasting, I believe that's going to evolve into a growth podcast. So it's based around growth, which mental health is a massive part of. But I believe as I carry on doing what I do, and I believe it's just going to sort of fluidly evolve into something a little bit more. I don't know what yet, but I might bring avenues in of maybe people in business, showing you how you can set up business and setting up your own businesses, people in different professions, or, I was a firefighter for a couple of years, so maybe bringing in firefighters and soldiers and things like that, hopefully. So who knows? I guess the most exciting part is the journey itself. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. And when I started this podcast, one of my friends who is a solid and established podcaster, he makes a living out of this, which is not my case.
Oh, really?
Very far from that. Yes. He's also based here in Dublin, and he said that whatever you are doing at the beginning will be different in a near time, or 2, 3, 5 years. So this is just the basis. This is just the first chapter, and it's just normal. It's just normal, like, because there are some people I know, like I have my family members who are they like to be loyal, so they feel very bad about going to a different route. But it's just the way it is, because we are exposed to so many things that we cannot stick to the thing we started at the very beginning. It's just normal. So other things will come along the way, and we explore, and maybe we will keep some of what we did in the beginning, maybe not. We don't know. But as you said, that's the beauty of podcasting.
That was what I wanted to hear. So thank you very much.
Yeah. So look, best of luck for for your ventures. I think, yeah, I mean, I am impressed it's going in the right direction. I think there's more to come, as you said. And also, I'm very thankful for you to being open, authentic, and transparent. I think it's a tough conversation, but I had people here also talking about very, very difficult topics. I had a person here who was a survivor of the 7th of October in Israel. So she had actually, she had Hamas members not knocking her door, trying to break in her door to assassinate her, and she survived. So that's very tough, to listen to those things. Very, very tough. So, but these things need to be said. So thanks for for the open conversation. Maybe I can welcome you back for a time in one of those panels that we have a topic and you will share your views. Why not?
Whenever you want me, I'm more than available. Like I say, I appreciate me and you getting in touch with each other, and we'll probably be friends. Maybe are friends now, and in the future we might meet up one day. We'll have a Guinness. I'll have a pint of Guinness with you maybe one day.
Yeah, I'm up for it. Look, all the best.
0% alcohol Guinness.
No, sorry, not for me. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. All the best. All the best. And we're talking offline about Manchester United. Hope my good friend Amorim can help United for the rest of the season.
I hope so. We'll see.
Yeah. All right. Take care, my friend.
Yeah. Cool.
Talk to you soon.
Thank you very much. Cheers, mate. Bye. Bye.